Welcome back to today's video and episode. So today is all about how to choose where to work remotely. So I was talking with a girlfriend in business the other day, and she said that one of her clients expressed to her that she would love to have one of these jobs where she could work from anywhere in the world, but she almost didn't even know where to begin with choosing that. And so I thought, wow, I wonder if this is something that a lot of people are curious about. Like, how do you choose where to even begin with working remotely or being a digital nomad or something like that? So I wanted to offer a few of my thoughts, having been a digital nomad on and off for the past 5 or 6 years now, having been to 35 plus countries and counting, and knowing kind of what it's like to work on the road. And here's some ideas to help you. So this is the way I've done it. It was definitely not intentional or planned, but it really worked well. And so I think that there'll be something in here that can support you as well. The first thing that I would start with is to get out a piece of paper right now and just like make your bucket list. Make your list of anywhere you want to go or can think of right now that's on your list. It doesn't have to be this final list. It doesn't have to be like your lifelong plan. It's just I keep a list in the notes app of my phone that's just like any country that I think would be really fun to see one day. And so you can start your list as well. And that can be where you work off of. So what can be helpful once you make your list is to group things by the continent they're on. Or maybe you start there where you go to Google Maps and you look at Europe and you list off every country you want to visit in Europe. And then you do the same for South America, maybe Australia, New Zealand, Asia, things like that, right? So then you kind of have your list bucketed out by where things are. And then that leads me to the second tip, which is to try and travel by continent because it can make it a lot more budget friendly, a lot more convenient, and a lot less miles in the air to stick to one place at a time. So if you're going to be traveling and taking your laptop with you with a business like copywriting, which I share more about, or any other business that you may have that allows you to work remotely, it can just be so helpful to stick to one broad area at once. So, for example, when I was in Europe, I did a lot of Western and Eastern Europe all at the same time before I went back to the States. When I went to South America, I crossed off like 5 or 6 countries in South America before I went back to the US. Same with Asia. So, those flights across continents are so long and often expensive that it can really save you a lot of time and resources if you can get to one continent and then just spend a week or a few weeks in a certain place before you jump to another place in that region. That's what our system has been. My husband and I, we've really spent a few weeks at a time in each country and then we jump to the next. You do need to be mindful of the rules around working remotely, around getting visas, around if you're especially like if you're staying for a longer period. For example, there's a rule within Europe where you can stay in the Schengen zone, which is comprised of several different countries in Western and Eastern Europe. But you can stay there for 90 days per 180-day period. And once you're at that point, you've got to get out, go back home, or figure out a visa and residency type of paperwork. So you want to just look up and use Google or ChatGPT or a lawyer to point you in the right direction there around regulations. But you can find a lot of information online once you figure out where you want to go. And then just make sure you are abiding by their legal policies and regulations, of course. So that would be the first thing is get your list. Your second thing is to look up like where you can go all on one continent. And then the third thing that I always think about once I kind of have my plan of where to stay in terms of cities or countries is I narrow in on the best neighborhoods to be in. So for example, if I am going to a city like Barcelona, it's a massive city, right? And it's funny because it was actually the very first city that we ever really traveled to with this digital nomad lifestyle. And so it can be really intimidating to know if you've never been to Spain, as we hadn't, where do you stay in a city of that size? And so what I do now, having had some good and bad experiences in this regard, is I always just use Google or ChatGPT now to look up what are the most popular neighborhoods to stay in a certain city. And usually, when you read articles or get a response on that, it's going to give you a little color as to what the neighborhoods are like. So, it'll describe some as more of the upscale, some as more of the hipster, more artsy, quieter, suburban. And that's going to help you gauge what's right for you and your travel partner, your family. So, that's kind of one of the first things I will look up. The other thing is where the old town for a lot of these cities happens to be, because the old town is where the cities still have a lot of the old architecture, and the restaurants and stores feel very charming and local. Once you get to the new part of town, that's when you have more of your big brand stores and things feel kind of like any other city anywhere else. So the old town is where you're going to really get the feel for what a city or culture is like. And so I always try and stay as close as I can to an old town. So you can look that up as well. Find it on Google, where's the old town in this area? And if it has one, then that could be a great place to center yourself around, because you're going to want to spend some time there. So it'll save having to constantly be transporting to and from that old town area. The thing that I like to do is look for Airbnbs around that area. Now, you can get bigger discounts with Airbnb the longer you stay. So for me, a sweet spot is about a week or two, because it's just long enough that you can get set up and you don't feel like you're constantly on the move like every few days. But it's not so long that if you don't choose the exact right Airbnb, you're going to be regretting it like right away. So for me, I'm like, okay, I can survive a week or two. I can get out of this if I need to, and then it still gives you usually a discounted rate if you stay a week or 2 weeks or even a month if you're willing to take that gamble. Make sure you look for things like good Wi-Fi, and check the reviews. I mean, you'll get a lot of insight from the reviews as to the experiences that people had. So that's something that I'm always very diligent about. It'll also give me ideas of how close something really is to the neighborhood that I want to be in, or the types of things that I care about. So if I really want amazing restaurants, a lot of times if there's great restaurants nearby, the reviews will say so. People will be like, within walking distance of the best location and restaurants and shops and grocery stores. Or they'll say things like 20-minute drive. It's not as close as you think. Or maybe they'll say tons of stairs. And all of that is really useful information to know when you're going to be living or staying somewhere for an extended period of time. And then the last piece that I will look for when thinking about where to go and work remotely or be a digital nomad would be co-working offices and coffee shops. So there's co-working offices in so many places these days because of the nature of remote work and a lot of work going online. So that can be a great way to pay, I don't even know what it varies so much, but you'll pay a little bit per week or per day that you want to use their offices. My husband and I, when we were in Barcelona, we would walk down every day, and we had this great little co-working office where we had our desks reserved. And so it really made a seamless experience for getting into your workflow each day. And a lot of times you meet the most amazing people who are also traveling or from around the world, and it can give you that community feel even when you are outside of your normal home community. So that's a really helpful thing. And different countries will have different coffee cultures. So whereas in the States, it's very common for people to go to Starbucks and work for a few hours at a time, other places, like maybe France, the coffee shop is more of almost like a restaurant culture where you wouldn't necessarily bring your laptop depending on the coffee shop, but instead you're going to be more so having a coffee and having conversation, or it's like a date or something like that. So you want to be mindful of that and not be the tourist that just packs your laptop up and camps out at a more restaurant style coffee shop. And so you kind of have to watch for that, but that's why co-working offices can be so helpful, because they really give you that environment where you can be heads down and work your normal hours and feel really productive and know that the Wi-Fi is going to be good and all that stuff. So that's where I would begin. If you have this dream on your heart to work remotely, make your list today. It will at least get your subconscious and your brain figuring out a way to get there. I don't know how exactly it works. I'm reading up on it all the time. I love some quantum physics and things like that. But I do believe it works. And if nothing else, it just helps your brain search for that opportunity and know what to look for. So make your list, kind of group everything by continent or region. If you don't have a work remotely job, that would be something to start exploring as well. As you may know, I teach copywriting because that's the path that I've used and allowed me to replace my 9-to-5 income and travel the world and have just so much more freedom and more experiences than I ever could have imagined when I was in one cubicle on one commute all day, every day. And so, but there's a lot out there depending on what speaks to you. So if you're interested in copywriting, I'll share more about it in the links below, but that can give you some ideas on the benefits of doing it and then also how it compares to other online or work remotely type jobs. And then, look at the regulations, make sure that you're fitting within any legal things that you need to do. That goes without saying, but just as a note, and yeah, just be open to it. Like there's so many opportunities. We live in this perfect time in history, maybe the first time ever where you have this chance to work from this magic device called a laptop with this internet where screens talk to other screens halfway around the world. It's like magic if you were to think of it centuries ago. And yet you have this opportunity if you want it and if you're willing to take it. So if this is a dream on your heart, listen to that instinct and then allow yourself to slowly find your way to it. It doesn't have to be overnight. It can, depending on how committed you are to get out there, but it can also be something that you just start paying more attention to and you start putting money aside for, or you start spending some time planning every day, or maybe you just set a target date for when you plan your first trip. And I swear to you, that first trip is going to show you how doable it is. It's going to give you these experiences that just light you up. I mean, I'm smiling saying this because it changes your whole world and life just knowing the feeling of that. And you will find a way after that time. You will find a way to do it more. So those would be my ideas and recommendations. Would love to hear which one stands out to you. What's first on your list? Where do you want to go? What have you always dreamed of? So definitely let me know in the comments or on my Instagram at Hi Jessica Johnson in the DMs. But I hope this is helpful to you and hopefully we get to meet at one place or another somewhere around the world.